had a lot of garment factories. And so all of the garment workers used to go to the Union Health Center for their medical services. And as a young child, I used to go with my mom to the Union Health Center because she was a garment worker. She's a seamstress. And later on, when I graduated from training, I wound up working there as my first job. So it was a really like full circle kind of experience for me. I did not have a traditional, if you go to the next slide, can I?
Yeah.
Yes,
You got
thank
it.
you.
Yeah.
Okay. So traditionally, ideally, we want to take the top route, straight line, right? High school, undergraduate, medical school, residency, fellowship, practice, right? And I suspect many people in this room and many people you've interacted with will take the bottom trajectory, right? And that's completely fine. Everything in between are things that you're going to experience, right? Being pre-med, taking your MCAT, which I didn't include here, sorry, going to medical school, finishing medical school, applying for residency, going through residency, trying to figure out what you want to do for the rest of your career, et cetera. I went to Columbia University here in New York for undergrad, and when I applied to medical school 2 years in a row, I was waitlisted. So instead of waiting for a third application year, I applied all over the world. I applied to schools in Canada, in South America, in China, in Hong Kong specifically, in Australia, in Europe. I applied all over the world. And I said to myself, the first program that accepts me, I'm going to attend that school. And so the University of Guadalajara, the Autonomous University of Guadalajara, accepted me first. So I looked into it. They had a relationship with New York Medical College. And I said, oh, there's a pathway through which I can return to the United States and practice medicine. I'm going to take that. And so I did. I went to medical school in Mexico, Guadalajara, Mexico. My teachers rotated down from different medical schools across the country. And then I returned to the US through as a US IMG, basically. And I applied for residency and went on to work in primary care. But early on, let me see this. So medical residency, right? So let me go back one. So medical residency is thinking about it is very stressful, right? As a medical student, you're like, it's very challenging. We know that there aren't enough residency spots for every single applicant that is part of an application cycle. Like, how do I stand out? I know there was a person earlier who asked about that. Like, how do you stand out in your application, in your interviews, in your interactions with residency programs? And so what I would say to you and what I would reinforce is build up those relationships and networks. Okay, so Steve Kai, who's one of my colleagues, he talked a lot about mentorship, and I have to tell you that mentorship has been a really important part of my journey as well. I'm in touch with every single one of my mentor, and one of my earliest mentors at Mount Sinai, he told me when I got waitlisted the second time, he said, do not despair, do not give up. You know, if you work hard, if you really are passionate about a career in healthcare and medicine, you will get there. And we have to find a different path for you. And so to this day, I'm still in touch with that doctor from Mount Sinai. He's long retired. But early on, the mentorship really helped me, and his ability to introduce me to his colleagues and other people helped me fine tune like what I wanted to do in medicine and healthcare. So really leverage your mentorship. And if you don't have many mentors, please reach out. I grew up in a time when there was no internet. My college introduced computers like generally for email use in my junior year, which was 1992. And so a lot of early communication was writing letters. I used to write letters, drop them in the mail, and wait for a response or a phone call. You have much more ability and possibilities through outreach to lots of different people in the healthcare setting. A lot of people say like, oh, who's going to answer my email? Who's going to respond? And you would be surprised. I think a lot of the clinicians in this room are evidence of people's willingness and eagerness to help the next generation of healthcare workers. So definitely take advantage of that, right? Once you're in medical school, right, the application, I know lots of people are going to talk about it. You could Google this. I like this from Dallas. I like the way that they just structured this picture and like when to apply and what to do, et cetera, et cetera. Definitely start early, right? As soon as the application's available, start working on it. my mentor in medical school said to me, do not wait until your last year to think about residency. Start thinking about it early on. Think about where you want to go. Think about who's going to write your reference letters. Think about who's going to hire you for a summer shadowing opportunity. Think about where you want to be when you finish residency. He asked me to think about things that often people put off just because life is busy, med school is busy, you're studying for your MCAT, or when you're in medical school, you're thinking of the USMLE, et cetera, et cetera. Please take some time to think about not next year, but 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, where you want to be, and figure out who in the world can really help you make the connections to the next step in building out your career. So this is not, a surprise to you. You can look this up yourself, but start early. I would say for people who are applying as an IMG, definitely people are going to apply. You're going to have a similar resume to many, many applicants. Think about what makes you different and unique, because it's not about you getting the training you need to move forward. It's also how the program perceives you as part of the team that will come in for residency, right? They want a team that would be cohesive, that will work together, that will do right by the patient. And so you want to demonstrate that to the program officers when you apply, that you are, everyone applying, they're going to have great board scores, they're going to have great research experience, they're going to have experiences that will be helpful to the application. But take a moment to figure out what's a differentiator in your application to these residency programs, and make sure you highlight that. Okay, the other stuff, the transcript, your CV will highlight the research or whatever. How are you different than everyone else? Okay, so definitely take a look at that. In your interviews, show energy. I have sat through interviews where, the applicant is just their tone is very monotonous. And I think about like, oh, how is this person going to interact with patients if their application or interview with me is so flat? Right? So remember, be prepared for your interviews, be energetic, show them that you are ready for the rigor of training. Okay, so this is for those who are exploring residency, this is the common list, right? You want to have a medical school CV, letters of recommendation, personal statement, professional photograph. Of course, your MSPs and your transcripts and stuff like that. Everyone knows this, ECFMG if you're an IMG. What I would say from this list, for those who are writing letters of recommendation, really find someone who can really highlight your strengths, right? I used to have a professor who wrote recommendations to anyone who asked, and all of the recommendations sounded the same. So there's no way if a residency program is seeing this almost a template letter of recommendation that they would say, oh, this person's really special, right? Definitely find people who understand your strengths and to highlight all the things that make you different from all the other applicants who are submitting to the poll. In case you haven't seen this, is the 2023 match data. I inserted a link so you can look it up yourself. This is only one slide out of very many. But I just want to highlight that for the first time in a very long time, emergency medicine had lots of unfilled spots. It's one of the things that we're all talking about post-COVID. Like if we're not able to fill our emergency room with residents, it will be challenging. But I like looking at this regularly just to see where all of the hotspots are, right? Where are the opportunities for my mentees as they think about residency and their next phase in their career? They release this annually. Please take a look. You'd be surprised by the number of unfilled spots that are out there. If you don't match initially, get ready to, they call it, when in my time they called it scramble, it's called soap now. But definitely, be prepared and do not be discouraged if you don't match initially. Really find the ways to get into where you want to be if you're really passionate about a career in healthcare. So they have many really helpful slides. Please take a look if you have a chance. They release and publish these every year. This is an overview of all applicants to the match, right? This is, as you can see, there were 48,156 people who submitted their initial application. Some dropped off, 2,000 and so dropped off. About 3,000 people did not submit a rank order list, sorry, to their application. So of 48,000, if you subtract the 5 who withdrew or did not submit their rank list, we see that there's 43,000 applicants, but there are only 37,425 PGY1 spots, right? And so what this tells us is there's not enough spots for everyone. And so again, think about your application, think about ways that you stand out among the 43,000 applicants. This is true whether you apply next year or the year after. Always find the thing that makes you stand out among all the many applications. One of the speakers said earlier, different programs use different ways of reviewing their applications. Wherever you apply, your application must be the one that they say, this is so special, we're going to pluck this out and call this person for an interview. Okay, so fellowship. I did not go through a fellowship. I have many friends who did. And this is really tiny, but again, I put the link there, so we'll share the slides so you can access it. But this is a list of all of the approved, and it got cut off a little bit, but if you go to the site, you'll see these are all of the approved subspecialty programs in the United States this year. You'll see it's a lot of pretty significant. Again, the data for this year I have not seen it yet, but this is from 2022. This is data from the fellowship application side of the house. You will also see that, again, there were unfilled spots, even though at the end of the application cycle. Take a look at this. If you're interested in a particular subspecialty, don't wait until application year. Start working on your application earlier in your residency. I know it's like really, residency is not easy. It's very, there's lots of work to be done. There's lots of learning to be done. There's lots of work to be done. And you can't think about the next step, but if you are interested in self-specializing, definitely take a look at the data and the programs. There's some programs. I have a friend who also went to school with me in Mexico. He was originally from Texas, and his entire life, from the time he was a little boy, he wanted to be a gastroenterologist. And it was really hard in the city that he was from in Texas. And he was like, oh, I'm never going to be able to get back there, and I'm never going to be able to do X, Y, Z in gastroenterology. And what he did was he explored programs in other places. Smaller cities, smaller programs. And he got in touch with them really early on and said, I'm declaring that I'm interested in you. And I believe that we will be mutually beneficial to one another. And later on, he had an opportunity to interview. And of all the applicants they really saw that he was passionate about becoming a gastroenterologist. And today he practices gastroenterology in Texas in his town. Okay, so you all have lots of different speakers have been here today talking about these different things. Before I joined Render last year in August as the Associate Chief Medical Officer. Before that, I spent 10 years at Maimonides Medical Center in Brooklyn, where I was, when I left, I was the Senior Vice President for Quality. Actually, I forget my entire titles. It included pop health and some other things. But throughout my 10 years at Maimonides, I worked in primary care, I worked in population health. Whatever they asked me to do, if it was something that I could do, I always said yes. And that's one thing that I suggest to you. I have mentees who tell me they're like, oh, I don't want to do this and I don't want to do that. And I go, if there's an opportunity for you to learn, never say no. And I think that's the thing that I have learned a lot from my mentors, that there's opportunities everywhere, and it's really up to you to decide how you access those opportunities. There's lots of options. When you finish with postgraduate training, you can work in an academic health system, a physician network like Render. We are, and I have to say, I have never in my entire career, I finished medical school in 2001, and not once in the years before I joined Render did anyone ask me my story or my passion for working in the Chinese American community, for why I went to medical school. And Render was the only time, and has since been the only organization that fosters my passion for healthcare in our community. And so when you think about opportunities when you're finished, please take a look at that. It's really important that organizations find the passion in all of you, and that they're able to have you maximize your strength within the work that you will be doing, because you will spend a lot of time there. I was on the drive over, I was doing a call with one of my coworkers, and she said, oh my goodness, when are you going to see your kids? I have little kids, and this being here with you was more important than spending losing a little time with my kids today, because the ability to like interact with you and speak with you was personally really important for me. And I want you, when you finish your residency, to consider where's a place that will foster your passions, and where are the places that will really see your strengths and use them for the good of the patients that you will see. Right. And there are lots of opportunities. I have a really good friend who completed her MD PhD at Columbia. She's now a senior director at Google, and where she works with them on building out technologies that will support healthcare work in the world. And so after residency, she didn't practice clinical medicine. She works for Google. I have some friends who are working on startups. I have friends who are working for the Department of Health. During COVID, one of my friends who was in clinical practice decided that she was going to use the public health side of her training to go and help the delivery of better public health for our city during the pandemic. And she did that. She took 3 years out of her career in clinical medicine to really try to organize things and improve things for our city. Research, I know a number of you are in research, have completed research, or interested in research. Here in New York, it is such an incredible place to be if you're interested in research right now. There's just lots happening at the major research centers here. Business and technology, there are so many, New York City has a technology hub, and there's a lot of startups that are focused on healthcare and healthcare services and clinical technologies that would support all the work that the clinicians use in their day-to-day. And then advocacy. We have a number of representatives in government who are physicians by training. And we have a number of physicians who are leaders of, just like Dr. Lee is, leaders of organizations that promote improvements in our opportunity to access healthcare careers and other things. And so please continue to be involved. I'm so excited to see all of you here today. I know there are a number of people who are online, but it's just a great way for all of you to experience fellowship, to seek advice from the physicians in the room, ask questions, ask how you could be helpful to them, as well as how can resources be in the world be helpful to you. Okay, with that, I'm just going to questions for me. I know this is a tough time, everyone's eating. All right, there are no questions. Thank you for ACAP for including, yes.
One question that residents also have to confront is whether to go into a fellowship or go into primary care. Comment on that?
Yes, thank you. The question is, when people are in residency, they wonder if they should go into fellowship or not. And so I was, as a young child, as a 5-year-old in an emergency room, and knowing that my parents who didn't speak any English, and Chinatown then was just in Manhattan, and they also didn't have access to widespread primary care. As a little girl, I said, I'm going to do primary care. So I'm a little biased. I find that if you look at all of the strong economies in the world, they have focused on prevention and wellness. And so primary care is key to their healthcare delivery system. In this country, it's very reactive. We wait until something bad happens, and then we rely on super subspecialists to help us figure out what's happening. So they're equally important. I think the people who are interested in a particular field, as I was with primary care, should pursue those things. I will always be biased. I think we're seeing it a little bit in the healthcare system today. There's a lot of movement to focus on primary care. There's a lot of changes in the payment system, or there are a lot of pilots that are happening where we are rewarding primary care doctors to do right by their patients. And so I think primary care in the next couple of decades will shift from being, being not looked at as well as some of the subspecialties. I think cardiology is very, I'm going to say sexy. When I was in med school, I was like, cardiology is so sexy. It was just like, it was so cool. And surgery, Dr. Hyde is a breast surgeon. When I was in medical school, I was like, surgery is so cool. Like, I love using my hands. I build things. I do a lot of carpentry, and it's like, I can do this. I love this. But I always, my heart has always been in primary care. And I think the United States is finally seeing that we cannot continue to support reactive care. And so there is a lot of focus on primary care. So maybe not you all, but I suspect that in the generations of applicants to come, we're going to see a shift from specialty care to primary care. Or at least that's my hope, because I'm a little biased. Thank you for your question. Other questions, comments?
Would be the healthcare model, I think, a touched on, that we can see the shift used to be more of a specialty driven, and now it's primary care driven. It seems to me, you know, we're always either on the left or the right. How would you envision, you know, would be the best thing in the middle?
Okay, so the question is, we've been hearing about shifts in the payment system and the delivery system in healthcare. What do I see as like the shift, right? And that's probably a poor summary of the question. I'm sorry. But so let's see, in 2007, NCQA, which is an organization that writes all the HEDIS measures, right? So when you are in medical school or in practice, they talk about the number of eligible people over this age who have a mammogram, the number of people who have a flu shot. It's created, organized by an organization called NCQA. They created other kinds of programs. One of them was the patient-centered medical home, which is a focus on primary care redesign. So early in my career, I left direct patient care to really help practices build out patient-centered medical homes to be more efficient, more effective, engage the patients in a different way around primary care. And I said then in 2007, I said, oh, this is really nice in a cute kind of way. And I was a little, I sounded probably a little condescending because I was like, I'm from primary care. I don't think there's real interest in committing to primary care as a core of our delivery system. And years went by, and now today there's lots of models, primary care first, advanced primary care, Medicare Advantage, value-based payment models. New York State as a state, New York pays more for the Medicare, in the United States, there are government subsidized insurance. One of them is Medicaid. Medicaid splits the cost with the state. Every state pays a different percent. New York pays the bulk. New York pays for more parts of the Medicaid system than in any other state in the United States. And so New York State has made a commitment. They have a roadmap towards moving us towards value-based payment models. So we're trying to slow down the churn a little bit, spend a little bit more time with our patients, and pay doctors so that they can pay more time with the patient. Unfortunately, primary care, up until now, they've been paid very, very little. My personal PCP, I see the EOBs, explanation of benefits. I pay a $20 copay, and the insurance company pays him $25. So for a visit with me, he gets $45, which isn't great, right? For someone who's gone through so much training. But we're seeing a shift where we're going to reward the doctor to spend more time with their patient. So instead of $45, it will be something plus a bonus plus something else. And so we're actually starting to see that. What the healthcare system is asking in return is that we actually get things, infrastructure in place to support the new delivery models. I know people who are interested in surgery or in some of the subspecialty, there's something called bundled payment programs. So basically it's a model through CMS where they say, okay, for someone who needs a hip replacement, as an example, we want you all healthcare system to work together. So from beginning to end, the patient will be prepped for the procedure, have the procedure, and will be discharged safely to either a step down or to home, right? And in that pathway for that patient, if you do really well and you decrease the reasons for readmissions, or you decrease bad things that happen to the patient, will give you a bonus. So they're reinforcing the focus on value and less on the churn that we were seeing for a little bit. In the past, it was like, if you saw 100 patients today, which is really, oh, forget it. No, I'm not gonna use 100. If in primary care, if you see 50 patients, it is a lot of patients. So we want to move away from that churn and say, ChenMed, as an example, ChenMed is an organization in the southern parts of the United States, and they have become a best practice on treating, managing patients who are 65 years and older. And I have a friend who's a doc there, and they have I think in his entire patient panel as a primary care doctor, he only has 500 patients. The average in the United States, the average patient panel size for a primary care doc, is about 2,500 patients. In his panel, only 500. So he is allowed to spend 30 to 45 minutes, even an hour with his patients every time he sees them. And if you could think about what you could do in an hour versus 15 minutes, that's it goes a long way. And so what he and ChenMed is trying to do is keep older people healthy and well as long as possible. It's natural for all of us, our bodies will age and break down. And with that will come lots of conditions for which we will need lots of specialists and medications and treatments, et cetera. And what they are attempting to do is to manage older patients to keep them well and healthy as long as possible. And so it's something that I constantly monitor because I think it's such a, I never thought in my entire life early on that I would be in a place where I would say, yes, primary care is something that you should consider because our country's healthcare system is really focused on making that better. So we're definitely moving in the right direction, at least from my biased position. Other questions? No, thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to spend time with you.
Thank you, Dr. Quinn. So we're ending the lunch talk, and we're right